and welcome back to Precon Party. Today we're going to be taking a look at two of the Precons from Duskmourn, and I hope that you get some ideas, maybe go out and get them yourselves, or maybe can give me some feedback on the video yourself. Let's take a look here. Alright, so the first of the decks we are going to take a look at here is Zimone, Mystery Unraveler. She is a 4-mana Simic commander, 2 of anything green-blue, for a 3/3 legendary human wizard with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, manifest dread if this is the first time this ability is resolved. Otherwise, you may turn a permanent you control face up. Now, what is manifest dread? So to manifest dread, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one onto the battlefield face down as a 2/2 colorless creature, and the other goes into your graveyard. And you can turn it face up anytime for its mana cost if it's a creature card. So similar to Morph, manifest dread is a different form of that where you can put a creature face down and flip it up on a later turn. For Zimone, you can do that for the low cost of just playing another land. Now, what's really great about Zimone's way of doing that is it doesn't matter if it's a creature. If it is any permanent and you flip it up with her ability with your second land, that means it is going to stay in play, which is great. So the way that this deck plays is very much like a landfall deck. That's why you can see so many ramp cards in this deck, as well as 38 lands. Now, 38 is a little light for a landfall deck, in my opinion. You want to be around like 42 to 45, personally. However, this deck is actually one that I bought myself. I've played it very heavily. I have a heavily modified list that you can find on my Arcadeck page. But this deck here actually is pretty strong, and one that I feel if you like to learn about different mechanics that are a little more unique, this would be a great starting point. So let's go over some of the key cards. We're going to look at the ramp stack, first and foremost, just because that's honestly where we should be looking for a landfall deck. So we have your Soul Ring, your Arcane Signet. Growth Spiral, pretty standard Simic card. Overgrowth Zealot is from Duskmourn itself. You can tap it to spend 2 mana of any one color, spend that mana only to turn permanents face up. So it's a mana ramp that also allows you to ramp even faster in flipping creatures face up. Rampant Growth, typical card for this style of play. Same thing with Sakura Triumph Elder. Shigeki, I'm not the biggest fan of myself. Simic Signet, Trail of Mystery, this is a big one. Whenever a face-down creature you control enters, you may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Whenever a permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So this allows you to consistently hit your land drops with Zimone because you'll be constantly putting creatures face down. Cultivate is really good. Standard ramp package, search for 2 lands, put 1 into your hand, 1 on the battlefield, double triggers a landfall again. Scroll of Fate allows you to manifest any card from your hand. Manifest, similar to Manifest Dread, is kind of like Morph. It allows you to put the card face down and turn it face up. It's a 2/2 colorless. You have Maya Elder. When it dies, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, reveal them, put them in your hand, again giving you that ability to make sure you're hitting your land drops. Orixmathes is a land when it enters. So this does come with, it triggers a landfall for you. You can pay the 4 mana, play it as a tapped creature that is now a land. So that's really good. Hierophants, creatures you control have tap, add a green, more ramp. What are some of the other ones? Explosive Vegetation. Now this is one where, honestly, I don't like this style of card. I think it's a little slow. The game has moved past it, but this is the type of effect you want. Search your library for 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. I personally like cards like Harrow, which is a 3 mana instant, 2 of anything in green, sacrifice a land, grab 2 basics, and put them into play. Same effect. Yes, you go down a land, or you go up a land technically with this one, but that 3 mana is actually much nicer to play around with in a deck like this. Wilderness Reclamation, end step, untap all your lands. This is more of the fair Seedboard Muse. And Ashaya, Soul of the Wild. This is a combo piece in this deck, as its power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Cool. Non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. So that means when you manifest Dread, it enters as a face-down colorless creature. That's a forest, which triggers landfall. So it flips up right away. Really cool interaction in this deck. Eudora, similar vein, where when a non-token creature you control dies, you can return to the battlefield face down under its owner control as a forest, triggers landfall, allowing you to flip it back face up. So some really cool interaction there. Greater Tanuki, decent card. You're typically not going to play it as a creature. You're going to discard it to search for a basic land and put it on the battlefield most of the time. Beanstalk Giant has that ramping growth on it, as well as it's a nice finisher, as its power toughness is each equal to the number of lands you control. And Shriekwood Devourer attacks one or more creatures, untap X lands. Not a bad card. So, what are some of the morph creatures that you're going to want to do with this deck, or some of the landfall triggers? Well, this deck comes with a lot of those as well. So, one of the bigger cards that you can kind of flip up with this is Sandworm Convergence. Creatures with flying can't attack you or planeswalkers you control. It's a pretty nice stacks piece, and then at the beginning of your unstep, you make a 5/5 worm each turn. Really nice. This does come with Scoot Swarm. Scooty is one of the biggest and best landfall creatures in the game. I cannot praise this card enough. I have won so many games off the back of a Scoot Swarm that just kind of flips out of nowhere. It's insane. Retreat to Kohlheim. It's a landfall trigger that allows you to tap or untap a creature. Honestly, not that strong in my opinion. And then we have Multani, gets +1/+1 for each land you control. You can bounce 2 lands you control to their owner's hand to return this card from your graveyard to your hand. Constant reoccurring threat, which is nice in a deck like this. Some of the other stuff in here kind of relies a lot on the morph mechanic, putting more stuff into play manifested. A really cool one is the Kuro Spell Snatcher. When it's turned face up, counter target spell. Cool, I like that. I like playing a land and getting to counter a spell. If that spell is countered as well, exile it instead of putting it onto its owner's graveyard. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. So, counter target spell, get to play it whenever you want. Really solid inclusion here. As well as there's a pretty solid draw package here. Augur of Autumn is a really strong card, allows you to look at the top card of your library, play lands from the top of your library, and then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Really great for making sure that when you're manifesting Dread, you always have a creature on top. Glitch Interpreter enters if you control no face-down permanents, return it to your hand and manifest Dread, and then 1 or more colorless creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, draw a card. Remember, each of those manifested creatures are colorless. Kefnet the Mindful can't attack or block unless you have 7 more cards in your hand, but you can pay 4 mana to draw a card, then return a land you control to its owner's hand. So you can kind of see a little theme here where you're bouncing your lands back to your hand so that you can play them again on a later turn to give you the extra landfall triggers that you're looking for. Eureka Moment, great card. Rashmi, also very strong. So as you can see, there's a number of really powerful things in here. Deathmist Raptor allows you to, when it's turned face up, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield face up. So whenever anything is flipped up, you get to bring this back. Pretty good. And you can choose face up or face down, which is a very, very strong thing. But overall, this deck does need a little bit of work. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it does come with some like really strong cards that really accelerate with this game plan. They came from the pipes. When it enters, manifest Dread twice, and whenever a face-down creature you control enters, draw a card. Really powerful in that. There's other upgrades you can do with this that go with the manifest or morph that allow you to draw more cards or search for more lands out of your deck and things of that nature to continuously trigger your landfall. So as you can see, there's kind of multiple ways you can kind of build this. You can build it more landfall-y, relying, more on Scoot Swarm or, Rampaging Baloth, things of that nature. I know the Baloth's not in here, but it's a really good card for this deck, and I would highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it. Or you can kind of go more of the morph route, where you're more supporting the flipping creatures face down and then flipping them back face up, things of that nature. Very strong at doing that as well. My personal list honestly does a mixture of both. I go to cheat out expensive landfall creatures with the manifest ability and then allow them to go crazy. Yes, I'm still running Scootswarm because Scootswarm's amazing. But like cards like Rampaging Baloths is a really strong card for this deck and one that I would highly recommend as an upgrade to this deck. So with that, let's take a look then at the other deck that we have here. This one is a little bit different in the fact that it's a little more punishing. Let's say that. And that deck that we're going to look at is Valgavoth, Harrower of Souls. He's a 4-mana 4/4 Rakdos, so 2 of anything, black, red. Flying, Ward is pay 2 life, so Ward is whenever he is targeted with a spell that your opponents control, counter that spell unless they pay the Ward cost, in this case, pay 2 life. Whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, you put a +1/+1 counter on Valgavoth and draw a card. That's it. He's pretty straightforward with what he wants to do. The style of deck here, give me just a second. The style of deck with this is what we would call a Punisher deck. What it does is it punishes your opponent for playing the game, for doing things. How does it kind of do that? So, Nightshade Harvester, 4-mana 2/2. Whenever a landed opponent controls enters, that player loses 1 life, and the Nightshade Harvester gets +1/+1. I don't even want to try to pronounce this, but the Parasite here, whenever an opponent draws a card, if you control a red permanent, you may have it deal 1 damage to target player or to that player. Again, punishing them for drawing a card. There's things like the other commander in this deck, Lord of Pain. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, choose another target player. Lord of Pain deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to the chosen player. Really, really punishing effects like that. Harsh Mentor, whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, they take 2 damage. Gleeful Arsonist, whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, it deals damage equal to its power to that player. Again, punishing them. Rampaging Ferocidon, whenever another creature enters, deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. Whenever it attacks, choose up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller may sacrifice it. If they don't, they take 5 damage. Vial Smasher. This is probably one of the OG Punisher commanders. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random. It deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to that player or Planeswalker. Really strong. Let's see. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, if he is tapped, that player adds 1 mana of any type that land can produce. Then they take a damage. So again, simple, just punishing effects there that hurt your opponent. Excuse me. Every time they want to play something in their deck, anytime they want to play a card, draw a card, use an ability, they get punished, and that's the point. That's kind of the whole draw of this deck. It does make games go really fast, and I will say this is a very strong precon. I would very much recommend it if you like that style of play, but do be warned, people see Valgavoth, they will target you. They will come down with a fury that you may or may not have seen yet, because this thing gets hated very quickly. It also runs a decent amount of ramp for black-red. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, we're all used to that. Fellwar Stone, we don't see that in many precons lately. Mind Stone is everywhere. Rakdos Signet makes sense. Seance Board, Morbid. Beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, put a soul counter on it. Tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is number of soul counters. Spend this mana only to cast instant sorcery, demons, and spirits. Yeah, you're playing with demons in this deck. Like, what do you expect is going to happen here? Talisman of Indulgence. This is the red-black Talisman. Thought Vessel. And then Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Can't cast the spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. Well, that's good. It's pretty easy to make your opponent lose life each turn. And he's a 4-mana 6/6 flying trample. And then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponent's lost this turn. So the more damage your opponents take, the cheaper your stuff becomes. Then obviously Simulacrum, Solemn Simulacrum, Sad Robot. There's also a decent amount of burn, drain style effects in here. Blood Artist, whenever this or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life, you gain a life. Bloodseeker, when a creature an opponent controls enters, they lose a life. Seems familiar. Bastion of Remembrance. Enters, create a human. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. Falcon Wrath Noble, same thing, except it's target player. Fate Unraveler, opponent draws a card, deals 1 damage to him. Gary requires no explanation. Each opponent loses X life, where X is the devotion to your black. It's a game ender. And then Sir Conrad. Sir Conrad is absurd. If you've ever played anything that is a reanimator deck, Sir Conrad is likely in there, and it's winning the game. Like, he's absurd. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much more I can really go over this deck. Almost every card in here is very synergistic with what it's trying to do. I mean, even just look at this draw package. Grab the prize, draw 2 cards. If the discarded card wasn't a land, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. Sign in Blood, target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. You can target your opponents. Beginning of each upkeep, or beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses 1 life. Punishment. Target player draws 2 and loses 2. Again, you can target your opponents. Braid's Arisen Nightmare is literally a nightmare to deal with. Florin. Beginning of your second main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile 1 of those cards, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You may play the exiled card this turn. That's just straight up card draw. Mask of Gristlebrand, whenever a equipped creature dies, you may pay X life or X its power. If you do, draw X cards. Yes, you're hurting yourself too, but the whole point of a Punisher deck is that while you're taking the damage as well, your opponent can't recover from it and isn't getting the advantages you are. Morbid Opportunist, that's a pretty common one in these style of decks. So, Spiteful Visions, this is a big one. Whenever a player draws a card, it deals 1 damage to that player. Yeah, really just, okay, we're all drawing extra cards each turn. Cool, you're burning. You know, so again, it's a very straightforward deck. It will get hated off the table very quickly, I will promise you that. However, if you enjoy maybe being the arch villain, or maybe playing something that punishes your opponents and makes the games go a little bit faster, this may be right up your alley for the decks. So with that, we're going to wrap up this pre-com party here today, and until next time, I do hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. If you haven't yet, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing to my channel. We are trying to hit 500 by the end of the year, and if we can't do that, you know what? Let's shorten the goal. Let's hit 100. Can we hit 100 by the end of the year? I think that's reasonable. And if not, we'll move it to next year. But until next time, I do hope you all have a wonderful week, and my name is Rob. I like to play games, and I'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.